Hey guys, it's JJ. Welcome back to the DC State Dynasty, where we just finished Season 3 and we went 9-5, 7-2 in conference. We won the Big Ten Championship game against Northwestern, which I thought was pretty unbelievable. I did not expect that to happen at all. And I also do not expect us to make it back there, but we'll definitely fight for it. And then we lost the bowl game, the first ever bowl game, to a number 11 ranked Oklahoma that just missed out on the playoffs. And in the last episode, I also already showed this, but we did hire 2 new coaches. So we are now having the Tidewater pipeline across the board. I hope that helps a little bit in recruiting in our most important space, I guess. And then we do get a recruit. These are just like the last couple of players that just finish out the class. This is Trevor Flood, a linebacker from North Carolina. Don't know how good he is, but I guess we'll see because I didn't scout him. And then a tight end that I don't think I scouted either, Rico Emmanuel. I think this was also a kid from North Carolina. I'm not entirely sure, but we do get another tight end. And let's take a look at the awards, starting with the Heisman, which went to Michael Hawkins, a dude that we faced in our last episode in the bowl game. Michael Hawkins is a very good quarterback. He's a senior, so that was his last game ever, and he absolutely destroyed us. We did not stand a chance in that game, but that's okay. We're going to move on. It's just a bowl game. Doesn't matter. And then, just a few awards here across the board that don't really matter too much to us. Head Coach of the Year goes to Georgia Tech head coach Colt Brazos. Best quarterback goes, actually, interestingly, to Isaac Wilson from Utah. He had a great season, definitely, but how do you give best quarterback to a different guy than Heisman? We got actually the Best Defensive Play of the Year award. This is something that I already showed earlier, but Cordale Newcomb did make it as the Best Defensive Play of the Year, and then David Gavazza. I don't know how he makes this list. He didn't have a bunch of sacks or anything. Did have a bunch of TFLs, but yeah. We didn't have anybody competing for Best Defensive Back, which usually is an award that's pretty easy to obtain as a player. But our defense just didn't make that many plays on the ball. Best running back goes to Tyler Cardoza from Texas A&M. And players that we'll never see. Bobby Shimanek, best receiver for SMU. That's just a team that we'll probably never face. Cordale Newcomb makes it also as the best defensive lineman of the year. And Gavazza comes in second in this one as well. That's pretty interesting. Down the list at 7 there is an edge rusher from Virginia that we faced earlier this year, that we face every year. But he's graduating now, so we'll never face him again. And then we have the senior QB of the year, also goes to Isaac Wilson, the Utah quarterback, who did have a pretty good season, and I will show this later. Cordale Newcomb is best defensive end. He did end the year on 15 sacks, which is roughly 1 a game. That's actually pretty good. Best interior lineman. Yeah, our O-line is not deserving of any awards. Well, I mean, I guess Mike Meeks is 88 overall. Should have maybe been in the conversation a little bit, but this is a national award, not just a Big Ten award or anything. And yeah, just getting through the list here. You see all these Texas A&M and Utah players, and that is definitely a foreshadow. I think you can already discern from the ranking of these 2 teams that they are the ones that played in the national championship game, and that's why these players have like inflated numbers, I guess, and that's why they make all these lists here. Now let's go through the All-Americans on the national level. Michael Hawkins is the quarterback. We've got a couple of running backs that I have never heard of that went to universities that we are now playing in our conference. We have Alex Taylor there, make it for UNC. I hope he does as well in my UNC dynasty. Well, I guess we'll see. Richard Cuevas is actually somebody that we have seen playing for Michigan. There is actually a bunch of Michigan guys here. And of course, they also got one in for the D-line, Larry Falk. Yeah, apart from that, we have a couple Oregon DBs that we have also faced, but who will now leave to go to the NFL. And yeah, we got blown out in that game, man. That one did not end well for us at all. And then we have, for the second team, Dylan Keys from Florida State, which is pretty interesting because usually I think this guy plays for Oregon, but can't tell you anything about that. Probably transferred there. And then we've got, I don't know, I don't recognize, actually I recognize Tremaine Cogbila for Oregon because we played against him. Probably gonna play him another time. And yeah. Now, for freshmen, this is usually where you have a better shot, especially in our position where we play a lot of freshmen, but we had actually not make anybody on this list this year. The quarterback, however, Evan Maben, that's an interesting thing because Louisiana Tech, as the number 19 ranked team in the country, they actually made it to the playoffs, and I think that's due to there's a few rules on how to make the playoffs. You have to be either a conference winner or ranked highly, and they won their conference and they were ranked a few slots higher than us, and I think that's the last chance for anybody to get in there. And yeah, that's why we didn't make it. So yeah, that's fine. We were not ready to compete in the playoffs anyway. Now for the Big Ten first team All-Americans, we have Spencer Maryland making it as a senior running back, 5'11", 191. This guy is going to be one of 3 players leaving this offseason, and he does make it Big Ten first team All-Americans. He did have a 1,000-yard campaign, very solid season for him. Very much deservedly so. As a receiver, we have a Kenyon Rainier make it. We recognize him from playing against him, and then a bunch of Michigan guys, obviously, especially in the trenches. They always have a bunch of good players there. And yeah, for the DBs, it's again Oregon, same 2 guys we have already seen. No kicker, no punter for us. Let's go to the second team All-Americans, where we again will have one more player, and it's a running back again. George Garrison makes it. That's so interesting to me because he also had a 1,000-yard campaign, but he actually had a higher yards per attempt. So it's kind of weird to me that he didn't make first team, but Spencer Maryland did. Because Garrison had more yardage and a higher yards per attempt, and they had the same number of touchdowns. But I don't know. That's how it is. One thing that's really annoying here to me is actually that Cordell Newcomb didn't make any of these lists, which is pretty interesting considering that he is the Defensive Player of the Year. And he didn't make any of these lists. Really? That's interesting. Let's check out the freshmen. Maybe we'll have a couple guys there, and see, we do. And again, we do have another running back, Heath McGinnis. He was the 3rd running back, and I think he had about 300 or 400 yards, decent average, but he doesn't make it here as a freshman All-American. And then we have a couple of receivers, Isaiah Stockton and George Halterman. Which is pretty interesting considering they didn't really have that much yardage. I think they both had about like 700 yards. We'll go over the stats later again, but this is what they've got, and they make it on this list, and still there is nobody on defense, I think, to make it. A bunch of players from Washington again. We played all of these guys. Yeah, no DBs for us, no kicker, and no punter. So, but that's it. That's fine. We do not really have the best roster in this conference, which is interesting considering that we just won the conference championship game. But I guess we were pretty lucky that Penn State and Ohio State and Michigan and Oregon and Washington, all of them had like 3 or 4 losses in conference this year. But yeah, let's take a quick look at the schedule that we just had. We had the first game against Navy, and we barely won it, even though Navy was a 2-10 opponent. And then we lost by 2 points to Virginia. I think it was a 2-point try that didn't work out for us. And yeah, Virginia was really strong this season as well. Then for some reason, we blew out UCLA, and then we almost had a chance to win against Ohio State, man. We win against Maryland by 1 score. We win against Iowa by 2 points, and we get blown out by Oregon. That game was over after the first quarter, honestly. And then we blow out Minnesota, one of the weaker teams in the conference for sure, but like 35-10, I don't think they're that bad. And then we have another close win against Illinois and get blown out again by Notre Dame because they're just way too strong. And then Purdue was also a blowout, and for some reason Penn State didn't show up. Like, we were up 28 something by the second quarter, or I don't know, and they never even like considered getting back into this game. And yeah, for some reason we made it to the conference championship game where we shut out Northwestern. Unbelievable stuff there. I do not expect this to repeat at all. We do have a solid defense, which is why we won most of these games, but overall I'd say that was a pretty lucky win considering all the other opponents had pretty bad seasons in conference. Now 2 of the conference foes did make it to the playoffs, as we have Louisiana Tech make it, but they get blown out against Utah. Then we have Northwestern getting blown out by USC, and they move on. LSU plays Notre Dame and lose by a bunch, and then Clemson loses by 3 to Washington. So Washington moves on. They face the number 2 seed, Texas A&M, and they do not make it. The Cotton Bowl goes to Texas A&M. They move on. BYU absolutely blows out Notre Dame. I have no idea how that happened because Notre Dame has such a strong roster, but apparently BYU was really strong this year. And then Miami, the number 1 seed, gets blown out by USC, which is pretty interesting to me, man. So USC moves on again. They have 2 tough wins there. And then Utah blows out Toledo. Well, I mean, I guess Toledo was a pretty weak opponent, man. And then we have Utah beating USC. Pretty surprising, honestly, but Utah makes it to the championship game. And then Texas A&M in a shootout wins by 3 against BYU. So yeah, Texas A&M goes ahead to win it all against a opponent that you would not expect there. But Texas A&M has been pretty strong in my dynasties, at least. And this was actually a come from behind attempt. They were down 24-3 at halftime and after the third quarter, and they do score the only touchdown in the fourth quarter to win the game. Now let's take a look at the individual season stats for our players here. Austin Westbrook had 2,357 yards, 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 7.2 yards per attempt. So that's not crazy good or anything, but we ran it a lot. I think we ran it like 40%, 45%, which is pretty much a lot in college. And we're gonna have a new offense next year. I can tell you that, all right. So that's having 2 1,000-yard rushes. That's not gonna happen next year. George Garrison, 1,129 yards and 8 touchdowns, 1 fumble. Oh, maybe that was the deciding factor because Spencer Maryland actually didn't fumble it at all this season, even though he had the most carries, 247, by any running back in the entire country. I don't think anybody had more. Definitely not in the Big Ten, but I think it's the entire country. Maryland had 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. Heath McGinnis, he did have a solid backup role. Spencer Maryland was beat up a little bit at the end of most games, so he came in then and he did play pretty well. Dalton Graves, he did not play pretty well, and he's actually a candidate to cut because he's basically maxed out. He's not going to get any better, and he had 2.6 yards per carry. So yeah, and then Benjamin Thomason, well, he has 2.0 yards per carry, but honestly, I don't think that's his fault because the blocking on a few of these carries was just absolutely horrific. So wouldn't cut too much into that. And then our quarterback had like 12 rushing touchdowns or something. That was pretty cool. And then we have at receiver, George Halterman had 746 yards, 3 touchdowns. Don't know how the off-season development's gonna go for him, but he was the leading receiver on yardage. Isaiah Stockton had the most touchdowns, and that's probably because he has the better speed. He knows how to separate. And I think that's why he got into the end zone a little bit more. But 646 yards as, I'd say, the de facto number 1 receiver. And then we have Javier Pullard, the tight end, 372 yards and 4 touchdowns. Was actually pretty reliable this season, even though his catching ratings aren't that good. And then Isaac Waller, he was a decent number 3 wide receiver option, 286 yards and a touchdown. And then we have Doug Berry, who got in the game there a few times. He's like the second slot receiver on this team, 184 yards. And then Spencer Maryland, he also did get a few catches, 127 yards, 1 touchdown. So overall, that might have also been a deciding factor. He had a lot more production through the air than George Garrison, which is obviously because Spencer Maryland was the receiving back and Garrison was the power back on this team. So yeah, for the O-line, well, we didn't pass it that much, so there can't be that many sacks to go around, but our tackles both didn't have a great season, to be honest. I guess we'll see. There's definitely something planned to change. We won't lose anybody to graduating or anything this year, but we will change it up a little bit. We'll talk about that later. For the defense, we have Joe Mandarino. He was flying all over the field, 174 tackles overall. I think that's probably most in the country. I never looked it up, honestly. Dalton Boger had a very solid season as a number 2 linebacker there. And then Marquez Emery, the slot corner. He did have a lot of tackles, but yeah, maybe he was thrown in there a little bit too early. David Gavazza had 23 TFLs. That's probably why he made this list. Newcomb had 21, and sacks are counted into that. So David Gavazza actually had 11 TFLs and 12 sacks, so to speak, and Cordell Newcomb only had 6 TFLs and 15 sacks. Dozier got in there a bunch as well. Mandarino, he was flying all around. He had a TFL almost every game. Pretty solid season from him. Now to go to sacks, we have Cordell Newcomb, 15 sacks. That is best on the team and also best in the Big Ten. I'll show you later. David Gavazza is at 12 sacks. He did have a solid season, but it's nothing to be like, yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty good season, honestly, but he is a speed rusher, so you do expect him to have a bunch of sacks, especially because he got all the third down snaps. He wasn't supposed to be a great run stopper, but he still was, so that's pretty good for us, I guess. I think he's been outplaying his ratings a lot. And then Arnold Dozier had 7.5 sacks. That's okay, I guess, for a number 2 edge rusher. Although he is, by overall, one of the best players on the team. And then just down the list, there's a bunch of other players that were getting sacks here and there, a couple of defensive tackles, a couple of linebackers. Nothing too surprising. And then Trevor Moffitt, he had 1 sack. I mentioned him because this guy's a senior, and this was his last season, so he's going to be gone. He gets 1 sack in his final season, and he's definitely not going to be drafted. Isaac York has the most interceptions on this team, 4 of them, and I feel like almost all of them were at the end of the season, and I was like close to like benching him at the end there because he was just not playing well. He should be a lot better than he is. He has 97 catching and 97 hit power or something like that. He should be a lot better than that. And then Ben Baskerville having an emergence here as the number 2 corner on this team. He played very well. And then we've got an edge rusher with an interception. We've got a linebacker. The second safety, Lane Van Ness, gotta mention him. That's his final season. He had 1 pick in his final year and 43 tackles. And then Marquez Emery, he had the pick 6 to start the 31-0 shutout against Northwestern. So that was pretty cool. But other than that, I was actually pretty disappointed at how Marquez Emery played. Now, for forced fumbles, we only had 2 this year, which is not much. That's very little. And it was, of course, our 2 best players on defense, Joe Mandarino, the linebacker, and Cordell Newcomb, the edge rusher. Yeah, this is all the rushing yardage from all the running backs in the entire country. And George Garrison was the leading running back in the entire country. Spencer Maryland actually did make it to number 5 on that list as well. So we had 2 of the top 5 running backs in the entire country for your just rushing yardage. And then Cordell Newcomb, he led the Big Ten in sacks, tied with the other dude there, Boyetta. I have no idea who he is, but I think he plays for, I think it was Ohio State. But it doesn't really matter. We lead the country here for sacks. Not the country, the Big Ten. The country was actually led by a different edge rusher who had 19.5 sacks, but it was not one of the Power 4 conferences, so don't know how much that's going to count. Let's take a look at the team stats on the season. We were one of the top teams in the Big Ten for offensive yardage. And that's awesome to see because we didn't really have a great passing game going. And that's because we don't have a great O-line. So I didn't throw it a lot. I'd say the passing game itself was actually fine, but look at the unbelievably commanding lead we have as a rushing team. We led the country in rushing this year, and not even like by a couple of yards. We led it by 600 yards. We had 2,600 rushing yards, and the next team is 2,075. So that's almost 600 yards. Crazy stat there. Let's go back to the Big Ten. Points per game, we were actually average, I'd say. There was definitely better offenses on in this conference, but we very much relied on our defense to win us games, honestly. Passing touchdowns, we were last, and also I think that is last in the country except for the military schools. And then rushing touchdowns, we led the country. 31 rushing touchdowns. Only one team had 30. That was Texas A&M, and they played, I think, 2 or 3 more games than us. So that's why they are that close. But we were definitely the best rushing attack in the entire country. Now for first downs, we led the Big Ten, but that's not surprising. I think that's just a stat that you're always going to lead on if you're a player and you're playing the games and all the other teams are simulated. Let's go to the defense, where we did have a top 5 defense in the Big Ten, and I think that's why we won it, honestly. We had a few very good games against offenses that were not able to do anything about it. I think we had UCLA, Purdue, and Minnesota all below 10 points or something like that, or below 12 points. Something ridiculous like that. We did actually have a solid pass defense and a solid run defense. That's something to be pretty proud of. And then for points allowed, we were top 5 in the country on that as well, tied with Northwestern. So definitely interesting to see how much our defense has come along, despite our offense being kind of stuck, I guess. And then for sacks, we actually had the second most sacks in the Big Ten, 46. That's pretty good, honestly. But we only had 1 forced fumble recovered, so that's bad. But the Michigan and Penn State had 0, so that's even better. On the other hand, Michigan had 21 interceptions, Penn State and DC State only had 12. Well, I mean, it's average, but if you don't have any forced fumbles recovered, then you're just not going to have a good turnover defense, I guess. But turnovers win games, man. And then for conversions, we had the highest conversion percentage on all the teams in the Big Ten. And I think we were top 10 in the entire country in that stat as well. And then we went for it on 4th down. We went for it a lot because we had so many 4th downs at like 4th and 1, 4th and 2, where you have to be aggressive and you have to go for it. And 82% is an unreal stat on 34 attempts. There is teams that didn't even have 10 attempts on 4th down, and we were having 34, man. That is absolutely crazy, but that's how you have to play if you want to win. We don't have the best roster in the Big Ten, and if you want to win, you have to be aggressive, and it did pay off this season. And then for red zone efficiency, we were actually on the better end in both defensive and offensive red zone percentage. So that's a good stat to have. And then for turnovers, the differential is not that massive for us. We didn't have it negative, but we also didn't have many takeaways, so that's why the number isn't like massive. We did have second fewest giveaways in the Big Ten, only 7. We had 3 interceptions and 4 fumbles lost. And for takeaways, third fewest. But it does make a difference because we actually did get 12 picks. And that's something that we have to talk about the end of the season for that, because Isaac York just, he had a few turnovers at the end there, and we had a couple more by Ben Baskerville and stuff. But yeah, this is leaving now, and we have only 3 players graduating, but it's getting more and more as the years go by. This is like the first bunch of players that are going to graduate this year. Spencer Maryland, Trevor Moffitt, and Lane Van Ness. Maryland was the only one to get significant. Well, I mean, Lane Van Ness was the starter at safety last year, but he didn't make an impact. He had 1 pick. Spencer Maryland was a 3-star JUCO transfer. He came in as a sophomore, and he was a receiving back from the get-go, and he looked like one too. Very, very good hands. He could play receiver if he wanted to, man. I think he would be a pretty good slot receiver, honestly. And we will see him again. Because this is the point where I gotta talk a little bit about Madden. I haven't done any Madden lately, but we are gonna create draft classes for my next Madden franchise. I don't have a team yet, but we are gonna have a few players get into that franchise in the draft classes and stuff. That's gonna be fun. So Spencer Maryland finishes the year with a 1,000-yard season. He had 880 yards last year and 588 yards the year prior. I think that equates to about 2,400 yards rushing and 16 touchdowns. I think that's a good college career. He only had two fumbles, and he carried it a bunch, especially last year. He had 247 attempts rushing, and he had 0 fumbles, man. That is beyond impressive. As a receiver, he didn't really have quite the yardage, but 300 receiving yards on his career and 2 touchdowns. I think for the volume we gave him, that's pretty good, honestly. And then, his personality traits. He's charismatic. He has all the good stuff and balanced penalty tendency. That's pretty good. I'm just going through all the ratings here to have a final look at them. This kid has 90 speed, man. That's pretty good. He's not going to be drafted because he's only an 82 overall, and in this game you have to be an 85 overall or an 86 maybe to get drafted. But I will put him in a draft class for my next Madden franchise as an undrafted rookie, and well, I guess we'll see how good he's going to do in the NFL, but I'm going to be excited. And that's also why we're going to see a bunch of other players, because I want these draft classes to be interesting and to have players that we actually know, that we recognize. And so there's going to be a few players here that we have played against so far, and one of them is running back Eric Cook, who is projected to be a 4th rounder. I'm guessing he's probably going to be going a little bit higher than that. He's a running back that we actually played against. I called his name a bunch. We play Maryland every year, so far at least. And he was a 4-star from the first recruiting class in this Dynasty. And he is unreal. He looks really good. That juke and spin move, the change of direction ability, the agility is 99. Very solid hands. He knows how to pass protect. He's a great route runner. He could play receiver as well, man. He honestly, with that speed as well, honestly kind of looks like Christian McCaffrey, to be honest. Not quite the pass catcher, but very good athlete and very agile and shifty, and can also break some tackles. He did not really have the greatest seasons you'll ever see. But that's mainly due to Maryland's offense. The O-line is just not very good, and that's also why we won the last couple of matchups against them. But Eric Cook was definitely a receiver to be scared of, just because of his speed and shiftiness. his elusiveness, his ability to create plays after, or like to create yards after the catch or after first contact. But yeah, definitely gonna see him as well, and I'm gonna be putting him in that draft class probably as a 4th rounder because he's projected to be there. And that's going to be fun to see these players go to the NFL. And yeah, another thing to mention about this project is that I'm going to be putting players from all my dynasties in there, not just this one. So we're going to see a bunch of players from different teams. I have 4 dynasties, one in the Big Ten, one in the ACC, one in the Southeast, right now Sunbelt, but maybe later we're going to move up to the SEC, and then one in the Mountain West Conference, which might maybe later be relegated to, or actually, might be relegated to the Pac-12, which I have recreated in that dynasty. So we're going to be seeing a lot of players from around the country, and from this one we're going to see players from the Big Ten, obviously. I want to put players in that we have actually seen play. And actually one of them is James Gonzalez. We have not seen him play at Michigan, but we have seen him play at DC State. He was one of ours until he decided to transfer away. A former 3-star recruit, 6 feet 198, perfect size for a cornerback, honestly. And he had 94 zone coverage. That kind of ability is worth something. Due to his athletic limitations, he might be suited better to play safety at the next level, but I'm definitely going to put him in the game as well as a UDFA, just because I actually liked how he played. He didn't have much production or anything, only had 1 pick in his entire career, but that 94 zone coverage, it wasn't quite as high when we had him on our team, but it definitely showed up, man. This kid knew how to cover. Doesn't have the greatest hands to catch interceptions or anything, but when he played with us, he had a pretty solid season. And he also was somebody to be able, that we were able to blitz. He was pretty solid as a blitzer as well, and he has actually forced a fumble as well. So yeah, definitely gonna see James Gonzalez, who actually is from Washington DC. I think he's from the first ever recruiting class we had, from year 0 basically. And yeah, just gonna go through his ratings here, but we're gonna see him. I'm trying to include players that we know and that we have had in the dynasty. And yeah, James Gonzalez is one of them. We have another one that transferred away the same year as him, another DB. His name is Gideon Umodu, strong safety. He transferred away the same year with him, and both of them went to Michigan. And then Gideon Umodu was like, yeah, nope, I'm gonna go somewhere else. And then he went to Notre Dame. And so we saw him last year when we played Notre Dame. But Umodu actually was not a JUCO, but James Gonzalez was a JUCO, so he declares a year early because he came in as a sophomore in that recruiting class, and Gideon Umodu was a true freshman, so he's going to be graduating next year. But it's kind of a funny story that they both went to Michigan, and it was like, oh Jesus, man, we have 2 solid starting. They were both starting players at the time for us, and both of them go away to go join the strongest team in the conference. That's a great idea. And then a player that we have also faced for Nebraska is running back Tony Warmack. Former 4-star. He's also declaring early, 5'11", 182, out of Miami. And he went to join Nebraska. We did play him a couple times, and yeah, he's dangerous, man. This kid is a receiver. This kid is an actual receiver, man. He is a receiver. He's not just any like running back or anything. He's a receiver with the ability to play a little bit running back. And I'd say, honestly, he should declare to the NFL as a receiver, not as a running back. But he's kind of, I'd say he's kind of in a Debo mold. He did have 4 years of experience here at Nebraska, so he played all of his 4 years. In the first year, he didn't play enough games, so they actually did redshirt him in that year. And he ends his college career with 16 touchdowns on, oh man, I think that was about 2,000 yards. And then receiving, he actually did play a lot of receiver. He had 35 catches this year, 32 catches last year. And that equates to exactly 500 yards in these 2 seasons, and then a few more yards in his first 2 years. So Warmack is definitely somebody to check out here as an NFL prospect. And he also, like, he has the athleticism, man, to play receiver. This is actually pretty good. He has also very high carrying and ball carrier vision, so he's definitely in the Debo mold, with that kind of ability to also break tackles. And he has 82 spin move and 94 juke move, but he has also all his catching ratings in the high 80s and 90s. So that's a really interesting prospect to put into the next game, or into the next draft class, I guess. And yeah, we'll see about that. And then we're gonna go through these teams. I don't remember what the next one was, but yeah, we have actually a receiver. Yes, I remember this one. Eric Stacy, we played him a bunch of times. He also declares early, projected to go in round 1. And no persuasion chance for Ohio State, so they're not going to be keeping him around. He's from Baltimore, Maryland, but he was from the first ever draft class. So in that season, I only was able to recruit from Washington, D.C., so that's why we couldn't take a shot at him. But at that point, I wouldn't have gotten him anyway. He's a great receiver. His ratings look unreal to me, and he also has very good elusiveness. Route runnings are lagging a little bit behind, but he has so much speed he's able to make up for his route running, and that's something that works in college. You can just run away from dudes because they're so much slower, but in the NFL that stuff is not going to work anymore. So I guess we'll see how he develops as a receiver at the next level. At this level he had, oh man, I think that's about 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns in college. That's pretty decent, I'd say. He didn't really have that much production. I expected him. Actually, that's something very interesting. 12 carries for 110 yards. That's a 9-yard average, man. And 3 touchdowns in his, I think that was his redshirt sophomore season. He looks really good, but his route runnings are going to be an issue at the next level, I'd say, because everybody's a great athlete at the next level. So I guess we'll see how this is gonna go. And then there's 2 more receivers there, Alejandro Villa and Mitch Hager, that you see. I expected Villa to declare early as well, and when he declares next year, he will also be put in the game, because Villa actually had a great game against us, man. This kid is just catching everything. And yeah, Eric Stacy, for a first-round pick, I expect the route runnings to be a lot higher, but he's a good deep threat. I guess we'll see how this is going to go for him at the next level. But yeah, excited to see him, and also excited to play Ohio State this year again with Villa and Mitch Hager. And Hager, by the way, was also a receiver that I had recruited, and I was in the lead the entire time until that 1 week where he decided, when Ohio State was like, yeah, nope, I'm just going to overtake here for this week, and then they took him away from me at the last second. So we could have had him on our team. That's pretty disappointing. Yeah. And then we have a guard from Penn State. That's not somebody that you'll recognize because, well, usually you don't talk much about the O-line. You only talk about them if they're bad. And Penn State O-linemen, not bad, at least not in the Big Ten. We'll see about the next level. But Larry Floyd, definitely a first-round caliber player. He definitely has the power and the pass protection to work at the next level. I'm gonna put him in the game. He played 2 full seasons, and he only allowed 1 sack in that entire time. So that's gotta say something, right? The only knock on him, I'd say, is the penalty tendency here with the undisciplined. I'm gonna put that in the game as well. He's gonna be an undisciplined O-lineman, and I guess we'll see how good he's gonna be. But yeah, the strength at 94 is very good. That's definitely guard worthy at the NFL level. I've already kind of developed a formula on how to put these players into an NFL draft class. He's not gonna have 94 strength in that game, but it's definitely gonna be good on the better side of the athleticism spectrum, I'd say. And yeah, and then we have another lineman from a team that we face every year. It's Lorenzo Antwine from Virginia. Virginia is not a Big Ten foe, but they are our rival. We play them every year. So far, those games have not gone that well for us. But he's a center prospect with very solid strength. He's a great run blocker. The pass protection is lagging behind. But if you put him on a team like Baltimore or something, he's going to be pretty solid, I'd say. He has had a 4-year starting career. Well, I mean, I guess in 2025 he was redshirted, so he played a max of 4 games in that year. But he has had a pretty solid redshirt junior season with only 1 sack allowed last year. He's the best player on their team. And yeah, also the undisciplined penalty trait, which is also going to go to the NFL, and we'll see. Probably a mid-round selection for Lorenzo Antwine. Going to be pretty exciting to see all these players at the next level as well, and not just have any randomly generated players. I mean, well, I'm not going to be putting 200 players per draft class, but if I take, like, let's say 6 to 8 players from every dynasty, then we're gonna have 4 times 6, 24 players or something. That's gonna make things interesting. And maybe the round 1 receiver Eric Stacy, maybe he goes to your division rival in the Madden draft class. Maybe your rival drafts them, and then you have to play them again every year. And this one, I remember this one as well. Kenyon Ream, a former 5-star recruit. He is a very good route runner. The hands, actually, for somebody that's like rated this highly, I think the hands are actually a little bit below average. But he has all the speed, man. And it's honestly pretty shocking to me that he has never had a 1,000-yard receiving campaign. But this deep threat is pretty crazy, man. Kenyon Ream had over his time also 81 carries for about 600 yards and 11 touchdowns, man. This kid can actually run after the catch as well, which is something that is valued very highly in the NFL this time around. Yeah, he has 99 speed, man. This is just, he's the John Ross, honestly. Now that I'm looking at these ratings again, I know 90 catchings seems high, but for somebody that's rated this highly, that's a 5-star prospect, you kind of expect them to have like all the catching ratings in the mid-90s at least. He didn't have that quite, but he definitely has some traits about him that make him a first-round worthy player. And then we're gonna go to draft results. We didn't have anybody drafted. I was already that was already clear from the get-go, but we do have a running back drafted here in round 4, Eric Cook. We'll see where he goes in the real draft. And then we're gonna have the Nebraska Cornhuskers. They are gonna have Tony Warmack drafted as a 3rd-round pick. Oh man, I'm gonna be so excited to see all these players. Eric Stacy is gonna be a 1st-rounder, even though he never had really the college production you want to expect. But this last season has been very bad for Ohio State. You have to admit that. And then the Nittany Lions, they have a guard drafted here as well in the 1st round. And then Antwine is also gonna be a 1st-rounder in that draft class. And I think that's the last player that we're going to be looking at is Kenyon Ream. With that speed, he's definitely also going to be a 1st-rounder. No doubt about it. Going to be the John Ross experience for somebody. And then we have National Signing Day, where we're going to look at dev traits. And Larry Tonga, he does have impact dev, which is not that bad. But more importantly, he has the, the field general in gold. That's already very valuable. And then we have normal for a couple of running backs, which is pretty disappointing, Joey Meadows and Daniel Hicks. But we have star on Wade Huntley. And I have not really decided yet if I want to play him or not, but I guess we'll see. Ethan Robbins has impact dev. Was expecting a little bit more maybe from a couple of these receivers here. Robbins and Coker both have impact, both 4 stars, but yeah. Andres President, we get the tight end, and he has star dev. And then Rico Emmanuel has impact. And then George Ivey, that's something that you had to expect because he had the bust label, that he had only normal dev, but that's fine. And then John Tabor, Lane DeMarco, nothing crazy there. Leroy Hale, honestly, normal dev, I don't know. I actually went a little bit overboard. We had 25 players this year, and we only graduated 3, so we're gonna have to cut a bunch of players, man. Rashad Ivory, Brian McClaim, James Pounds, there's nothing crazy about those guys. And then Brian Wims, the guy that actually decided to go to Alabama at the last second. That's also going to be somebody a few years down the road that's going to be ending up in a draft class. But he only has impact dev, which is kind of shocking, honestly. We have a couple of linebackers we didn't scout, but Trevor Flood, the linebacker from North Carolina, he has star dev. Then we have a corner go to Maryland, impact dev. He was from Washington, D.C., that's why I recruited him. We have a 4-star corner ourselves here with star dev and Rashad Ring. Quincy Battle is going to be normal. And Simon Shore has impact, the 4-star safety from Washington, D.C., and then another safety with normal. So all in all, I'd say an okay signing class, or like dev trade impact thingy. Nothing crazy. We didn't have anybody with elite, so that's got to be disappointing. But a few star players where we expected that. I think that's fine. We had the number 14 class in the country, and Miami, for some reason, they had like, oh, I forgot, 5 stars and 34 stars or something. Crazy class. Oregon had 2 5 stars and 27 4 stars. Jesus, man. They just look too good to be true. And then we have position changes, and there's a bunch of players I want to make position changes on. First one is Dalton Graves, because he's maxed out, and I don't really see anything that would make me want to go, okay, let's put him at receiver and then back to running back. And that's because this kid actually has 69 finesse moves and 62 power moves and 68 tackling. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, let's just try something else entirely. This kid is 5'9", but I'm gonna put him at edge rusher, and maybe he has a chance to break out there, because he's not gonna be a starting running back probably anytime soon. And if we put him at edge rusher, he's gonna have a completely new set of skill caps. Maybe he's gonna explode there. And then we have a running back here in Heath McGinnis that was almost maxed out. So it's like, let's put him at receiver. This is something that I will be doing a lot for players that are capped out. And yeah, put running backs at receiver, put receivers at running backs. Doug Berry's the first one to do that on. He has been pretty reliable as a receiver, but he's never going to be anything more than a 77 overall. So we're just going to put him at running back. See if we develops any running back skills there, or maybe even his receiving skills. And one thing that yeah, we have to watch with that is definitely after I did these position changes, I took a look at all these players that I put from receiver to running back, and almost all of them had so many free caps there at running back. And they are all receiving backs, obviously. So they are going to first put all their off-season development into the receiving back abilities. So all of these got basically slot upgrades. And that's why I did that. The only one I didn't do it on was Isaiah Stockton, because he still had some room to grow there. And George Halterman also did have a little bit of room to grow. So I left those two, but almost everybody else was capped, and I put all of them at running back, and we'll see how they develop. And then the plan was not to leave them at running back. The plan was to, after training, move them back to receiver and see what that did. And I guess we'll see. Mitch Boschetti, he was capped from the get-go. I got him as like a 67 overall, and he has never developed into much. We'll see what the position change does. We had a couple of running backs turn to receiver. We do have a bunch of receivers turn to running backs. I'm also going to do it on a couple of players on the D-line. We'll see how this is going to go for them. But yeah, this kid, Vitale, the last receiver I just converted there, he's not going to be going anywhere, I think. Even if he does get a good offseason boost, he's probably going to be cut. And then we have Terrence Grimes, who is maxed out. I got him as a 64 overall, and he was maxed out as a true freshman. He's now a redshirt freshman. And I took a look at his position change options, and he actually does have some very good ratings to play linebacker. He has 81 tackling, 75 play rec, 80 hit power, 70 block shed. His coverage is probably never going to be great, but as a run stopper, I'd say he's going to be better off there. And it's actually a better fit for him to play linebacker, just going up and overall there already. I was maybe thinking about edge rusher, but he's not that big, which was also a concern for Dalton Graves, but that kid absolutely can play linebacker, while this kid absolutely can play edge rusher. So yeah, and then we have George Ivey, the true freshman. I was always going to put him at guard. That's why I recruited him, because he has good ratings to play guard. I don't think he's ever going to be a tackle, but he's going to be the backup to Jason Moreland. Or rather, he is not going to be the backup to Jason Moreland, because I'm going to be putting Jason Moreland at left tackle. Because this is a player that he started out as a center, and he also, like, he has the size of a center. He's 6'1", 285, so very light for no lineman. But he didn't really develop as a center, so I put him at guard. He developed a little bit, but now I'm going to put him at tackle, because for some reason he is like +6 in overall or something. And now our starting tackle from last season is not going to start, and he hasn't developed much as a starting tackle, so I'm going to put him at guard. And I feel like just from athleticism and abilities so far, I think both of them are better off at their new positions. I think Jason Moreland is going to be a very solid tackle, and Thompson, if he develops a little bit, I think he's going to be a decent guard. And now we have a linebacker here that's capped out at 82 overall, 83 overall at middle linebacker, Joe Mandarino. He's great at linebacker, but imagine what he can do at safety, man. He has 89 speed, so that's definitely enough to play safety, and he's 6'3", 230. That's basically playing base 4-3 and nickel at the same time. Because you always have a third linebacker on the field, even though he's playing safety, and he's also playing safety, and he's good enough to be a safety. So that's going to work out great for us, I think. And then we have a corner here in George Proctor that doesn't have the speed to ever play corner. He's never going to start at corner. So I was like, let's just try what he can develop into as a safety, because we also lost a safety this offseason. And yeah. Now, let's look at the training results, and we can already see at quarterback, nothing changed, whatever. This was not something that was like surprising or anything. Almost all of these guys are capped out, except a couple, and they're just not gonna never develop, I guess. Charlie Hearns is now an 84 overall running back. He was one of the receivers. So is Doug Berry. Both of them develop into pretty solid running backs, honestly. And then Benjamin Thomason is a running back that actually developed pretty well this offseason. And Dalton Ellington, same thing. Mitch Boschetti got a pretty good boost as well. Isaac Waller, not as much. And then Isaiah Truman and Leotti Vitale, they were the two guys that didn't develop a whole lot. And George Garrison, by the way, the lead running back from last year. Man, this is so disappointing. This guy's a 74 overall. He was last year. He was the year before that. And he still has, like, he doesn't have any cap restrictions. He just doesn't train in the offseason, I guess. So that's pretty disappointing to not see George Garrison get up to that 80 overall or something and be an actual lead back and do anything. I don't know. So yeah, at receiver, we have great devs for Isaiah Stockton, for Garrett Wolf, and for TJ Proctor. All four of these guys look pretty good. Well, three guys, and then George Halterman, who didn't really develop a whole lot. He got a couple of points, I think, but Yeah, and McGinnis got a little bit of development, but not much. George Stingley had a very good dev boost. He was redshirted last year. He's going to start this season, definitely. He's the best tight end by far. And then, yeah, Grossman has been maxed out for a long time, and he can't play any other position, so I'm just not going to deal with that. And then Javier Pullard, also maxed out, and yeah, the other two tight ends don't really matter. And then we have Jason Moreland. He's now an 85 overall. So that change definitely worked out. He was like a 74 overall guard last year. And now he's an 85 overall tackle. So that's good news. And he's a junior. So he has still one more offseason to dev. And maybe he's getting to the 90s next year. Who knows? He definitely has the room. He does not have any caps or anything. And then this move also did work out for Jason Thompson, who is now an 80 overall guard. That's, I think, a +6 on Jason Thompson. That's very good news as well. And then Greg Steven had a great offseason as well. But Dan Eifert didn't develop at all. That kid just looks like a dumpster fire. And then Andy Mayo, the starting center from last year, he's going to be starting again this year. An 83 overall. That's a +4 boost. And I think that's also a +6 boost or something. +8, I don't know, on Mac Hawkins. Both of them great dev. And then Mike Meeks, this is a little bit disappointing. He was an 88 overall going into this offseason, and he didn't develop at all. Jake Gaiman, 77 overall, didn't really develop a whole lot either. But good news, +8 on Shakir Parkey, our right tackle. He's a true junior. He has been playing his first 2 seasons. This is going to be his 3rd one. And he's now an 82 overall tackle. And the good thing about this is all of our O-linemen are now at least an 80 overall, and that's going to make this offense so much easier to run. We're going to have a very different offense from last year. Dalton Graves, I can't believe that this happened, man. He just went up, I think, 11 points or something. Unreal stuff there for Dalton Graves, man. As Cordell Newcomb just had like a +2. Well, that's great, but Newcomb is still going to be a starter. And then Latimer had also a great dev jump. And Brian Palumbo, who was a pretty disappointing player last year, or like from the last offseason, he did have a good jump this season, but it might have been too late. Arnold Dozier doesn't get a huge jump or anything. I don't think he did get any jump at all. Who did get a good jump was Mitchell Zeman. And this kid's going to play, man. Our 4-star recruit. He was redshirted last year. He looks very good. And then Siaki Crook had a little bit of offseason dev as well. That's pretty good to see. And then the biggest winner at defensive tackle should be Dylan McCaffrey. But it's actually somebody else. We're going to talk about that later. David Gavazza didn't really go up. And this is going to be his senior season. And then Shakir Gooch did get a good jump. But we'll talk about that later as well, but he was the big loser of this offseason. Nizialek has a little bit of a jump. The biggest jump, I think, was for Oscar Toviesi. I think he was like a 69 last year, and he just made a pretty good jump. And then down the list, there's a few players that just didn't develop a whole lot anymore. The only one down there from the last 4 guys is actually a Ryan Landry. I think he got like a +5 or 6 overall jump. And then for linebackers, Alani Siao didn't have a great jump this year. +3 overall, I think. And then Terrence Grimes, he had a pretty good jump. That's very good to see. So it's nice to see that this kid is actually going to be able to play linebacker. And his play rec, for example, went up to 87. His tackling is 83. Ray Lindsay did get a little bit of a jump. And then Dalton Boger, 84 overall. Man, this kid has had an unbelievable offseason. He has now 94 speed and 94 acceleration, and that was not at all the case last year. So he's actually going to be the lead linebacker here, as Willie Pounds has a +9 overall jump as well, the middle linebacker who was redshirted last year. 4-star player. We're going to see a lot of Boger and Pounds this season, man. And then Avery Baggett, decent jump, I'd say. Matthew Robbins also had a pretty great, crazy offseason. He's just not the greatest athlete, so he's definitely going to see the field, but not as much as Boger and Pounds. And then at corner, Ben Baskerville, now the #1 corner on this team as a redshirt sophomore, 85 overall. Crazy good offseason dev. Trayvon Melvin didn't get a jump at all. He's still at 84 overall, which is so disappointing because he looks so good. Then Jimmy Busby also had a very nice offseason dev. And then Manny Fine, I think he went up by 10 overall. And Marquez Emery didn't go up at all. He didn't get a single point of overall. That's very disappointing. Steve Handy, yeah, I mean, he did get a little bit of a jump, but he's still the worst corner on this team. And then we have Isaac York, another disappointing offseason. He has now had 3 off seasons where he didn't, all 3 of his off season where he went up by like 2 overall. So he's still not even on 85 overall. I don't think he's gonna get drafted like that, and he's a senior now, so don't know what to do about that. Nate Square had like a +2, not crazy or anything. Joe Mandarino is now the best player on this entire team at 89 overall. I guess with a little bit of a boost from the coaches. Second best player if you take those boosts away, because Mike Meeks is actually an 88 overall, a true 88 overall. And then George Proctor had a massive jump, so he's now an 81 overall with that 87 speed. So that might even be playable at safety if there's an injury. And then Donald Lanovoy, our kicker, well, I mean, didn't do much, but Dylan Spofford, our punter, is now an 82 overall. His kick power and kick accuracy haven't changed much, but yeah. And this is the thing, I recruited too many players, so now we're going to have to cut 20 guys, and I already know where to start. Moses Villain, the quarterback, he's never going to play. He's just not good enough. And yeah, this always makes me sad, but he's never going to play. Jamie Rhodes, I had high hopes for him, man. When I recruited him, this guy had such good skill caps, and he just never developed into anything. He has, in like 4 years, he had like +6 overall win. That's it, not more or anything. Dalton Ackers, another very disappointing guy. He has also had pretty good skill caps, and I think he has like star dev, but he never developed into anything. I thought Jamie Rhodes and Dalton Ackers both had a good shot at overtaking Wade Scioli in the early stages of this series, and they never developed into anything. Paul Brownlee, another guy that's almost capped. He's not going to make it anywhere. He has 86 speed, so he's also not going to start at running back or receiver, and he doesn't have any other skills. So we're going to cut all of these quarterbacks that are just never going to play anymore. And move on to running back. Trevor Cugbila, not going to make it. Just not good enough. And then we go to fullback, where we have Taekwon Sandland. He's definitely the better fullback right now, but he's a senior, and I think he's skill capped, so he's not going to get any better anyway. So I'm fine with going with Hepburn. He's not that much worse, and he's like a sophomore. And then Leody Vitale, I already talked about this. He would have had to have a massive jump if he was going to make this team. And then Mitch Boschetti, he actually did have a very solid offseason. He had +2 speed at the running back position, but he's just not going to make it. And he's a junior, so I think he's pretty much done. I should have done this last year. Maybe he would have had a chance or something. And then another guy that's just never going to play anymore is Isaiah Truman. So the first 3 receivers are just not good enough to play, and they are getting up there. There is freshmen and sophomore that are better than them. And yeah, Truman just never was a good receiver for us. And this one hurts a lot. Doug Barry, one of our best pass catchers, but he has 82 speed. And even the training boost at running back didn't give him any speed. And 82 speed now is not good enough to play anymore. We have more receivers that are better than, or like have comparable skill ratings, but a lot more speed. So yeah, and then we are also going to cut a tight end there. Nothing much to worry about. And then we have Dan Eifert, a guard that never developed into anything, and now a freshman guard has overtaken him in overall. So there's just no point in keeping Dan Eifert anymore. We're going to cut him. And then we're going to go to safety, where Darren Chenowine never going to play, because there's better players than him at the position. So we're gonna cut him. Disappointing to see, obviously, but can't do anything about that now. And then we have Rob Maslowski. He has been playing a little bit every year. He was a backup. He was a backup slot corner. He was a backup safety. He was a backup linebacker. But he never developed a whole lot. So now it's his time to go. He's not going to be better than all these other safeties. And this is round 2 now. After I made the first round of cuts, I still had 6 players to cut. And this one hurts the most. Isaac Waller. Didn't think I'd make this, but 86 speed, and all the other receivers are getting better than him. Was just not enough of a boost in the offseason at running back. If he had like 88 speed, I would have kept him, but 86 speed is just not enough anymore compared to the other receivers that we have on the team. And then a defensive tackle that didn't make an impact in his first offseason was Lane Knox, 64 overall. I don't think he's ever going to make it past 75, and all of our starting defensive tackles are like 80 overall. So he's got to go. Antoine Boudreaux, also for him, 70 overall, just never going to make it. We have a right end as Robbie Eifert. Also didn't really make a good jump or anything, so he's also going to be gone. It hurts me to cut these many players, and there were a couple of cuts where it was like, okay, I shouldn't have recruited that many players, but a lot of these players I'm just not fond enough about. And Steve Handy is also one of them. He's not a great athlete. All the other corners we have are better athletes than him, and he's just never going to make it. Austin Westbrook. We're going to go over the roster now. So if you want to jump this part, this is like a half hour, I think, talking just about the roster. Austin Westbrook. 92 throw power. He's maxed out there, so that's not going to be getting any better. He's a very good running back, man. Yeah, he's definitely going to be the starter this year, and we're going to involve him a lot more. He was just handing it off to running backs all the time last year, but he's actually going to play quarterback this year, and aiming for about 3,000 yards, maybe get 20, 25 touchdowns. Our backup quarterback, Wade Scioli, he hasn't developed in like 3 years, so there's just no point in talking about him. But Larry Tonga is a 4-star we just brought in, and I'm pretty disappointed about his skill caps. I think he's going to be a fine player at in a couple of years, but he didn't really have any great accuracy or throw power caps, and he's a pocket passer as well. So I guess we'll see, but for now he's just going to be staying there as a third quarterback, and we're redshirting him. The lead running back is not Benjamin Thomas, and even though he's the highest overall running back, and he still has some room to grow. His route running and hands abilities are pretty good. His elusiveness, however, is just not there. He doesn't have any power. He has 41 stiff arm, and he has only 85 speed. He actually was a cut candidate because of that speed. But for now, he's going to stay on the team. The new Spencer, Maryland is called Dalton Ellington. 5'11", 202 out of Maryland. 3-star recruit. Decent short route runner. Very good hands for running back at least. The elusiveness is decent. I don't think he's ever going to be as good as Spencer Maryland was, but he has 90 speed and 88 acceleration, so he has the athleticism to play, and he's going to be our leading third down back. Heath McGinnis, he got a little bit of an offseason boost at receiver, and now he's back to running back, 6 foot 190 out of Fredericksburg. He still has a little bit of room to grow there, but yeah, his elusiveness is capped out, and that's why he's probably never going to make it as a starter. Did have a good freshman year last year. We'll see how good he's going to be this year. 89 speed, 91 excel. He's the third running back on this team, and he's definitely going to play just like he did last year. I'm expecting him to get like 5 or 10 carries. No, not 10. Maybe 5 carries a game or something. And then George Garrison, the lead running back. He's still going to start this year. There is so many skill caps here that are still open, and he's now a senior. It's so disappointing that he didn't ever get any great training boosts, because this kid is actually a really good running back, or could be. He's going to start again this year. He's going to get a lot of carries this year again. Probably going to get to 1,000 yards again. but seeing all those open skill caps and him being a senior, it makes me really sad. Joey Meadows, 5'10", 198. This kid was a recruit that I shouldn't have been able to recruit because now he has, yeah, I don't know, it's a pro potential thing. We didn't have anybody to go to the draft last year. He's not gonna, like, we're not gonna have anybody to go to the draft this year, projected at least. So why on earth would he come to here? Like, why on earth could I recruit him if he's just gonna leave after this year? I hope we can keep him around. He's gonna be redshirted this year. We'll see how it goes with Dalton Ellington. If it doesn't work out, I might give Joey Meadows a shot as starting running back. But for now, it's going to be the Dalton Ellington show. And then we're going to change it over to receiver. Isaiah Stockton, he's the lead receiver, the best player at the position. He has the best hands now that Doug Berry has been cut due to his lack of speed. 93 speed is also the second best receiver on the team, just from speed. He's going to be the slot receiver. He's going to play a lot this year. I expect him to get maybe to 800-900 yards. Garrett Wolf had a big jump in the offseason. He's now almost maxed out, but his offseason development was pretty good. And he's starting because this kid is an actual really good route runner. This kid has 94 release, 91 short route running, 85 deep, and 86 medium. This kid is going to play, and a lot. His catching ratings are not right there, but it's good enough. 89 speed, not great, but he is playing in the slot. George Halterman, 6'5", 208, 3-star player. Physical archetype. He is now almost maxed out. He did get a little bit of an off-season jump, but next year he's definitely going to be going to running back for the off-season. And then we'll hope we can develop a little bit more there. But he's a decent number 2 outside receiver, I'd say, with the perimeter thingies and the 88 short route running, the 80 spec catch, 81 catch in traffic. But that 75 catching is just so low. So he is definitely the loser of this offseason because he was a number 1 receiver last year, and he's not going to be that anymore this season because we have actually a different guy in mind for that, and we'll talk about him in a second. This is TJ Proctor, who has also had a big offseason jump. He stayed at receiver. This kid is 6'3", 190. He's now maxed out after this offseason, but he has great route running ability in the short parts of the field. His hands need to get a lot better, but he has 85 spec catch at least, so it's not that bad. And this kid has also a little bit of running back ability and 91 speed. Sadly, his hand situation is just not good enough for me to start him this year. But one player that's actually going to start this year is Charlie Hearns. He's going to be, the number 1 outside receiver. He's not the greatest route runner you'll ever see, but he has great hands and more than enough speed to make up for it. And he has great elusiveness as well. 90 speed, 90 acceleration is a little bit better than George Halterman, and his hands are so much better than George Halterman. So that's why we're going to make the change. And then Wade Huntley, a freshman, a true freshman that I recruited last year from Jersey City. He's going to be redshirted for now. It's not a final decision yet, but for now he's going to be redshirted. His route running is just so abysmal. I love that he's a good pass catcher. I love the 96 speed. I would love to play a 6'4", 96 speed receiver, but those route runnings are just so bad. It's just absolutely abysmal. And then our other true freshman big receiver that we recruited, he's even bigger. He's 6'5", from Dover, Delaware. Not going to play this year either, and again, it's due to the route running. Both of them are just not ready to play. With the route runnings that bad, 68 in the medium, that's just not going to work out. The catching ratings, at least Wade Huntley is a great pass catcher already. But this kid, Ethan Robbins, has only 78 catching. And 92 speed is just not special enough to be able to, like, okay, let's play him this year. No, he's going to be redshirted, definitely. And then the third 4-star receiver we recruited last year, Larry Coker, he's going to be redshirted as well, and he is actually the biggest disappointment. He's 5'8", 185. And as a player, as a 4-star player with that size, you expect to like 94, 95, 96 speed or something. But actually, he doesn't have any of that. And his catching ratings are so bad. 75 catching, seriously? Honestly, I'm kind of thinking about putting him at running back next year. Because his elusiveness ratings are actually pretty decent. But his pass catching is just so bad. George Stingley, the tight end. This is going to be our best receiving option, I think, this year. Stingley is a blocking tight end archetype, but he does have some solid catch and traffic, and that's the only thing I'm counting about here, or that I'm worried about here. He does not really have the speed that I want, but 77 speed, it's workable. I know it sounds bad, but honestly, looking at my Maui Dynasty where I had Brandon Bauer start for a year, this kid has also only 77 speed, and he looked very much fine. We also recruited a 4-star tight end last year, and I expect this kid to be the starter next year. He's going to be redshirted this year, but he has great hands. The route running's not quite there yet. He's not going to be developing a whole lot as a pass catcher anymore, but he has 88 speed, and I'm going to be so happy when I put him on the field next year. Jason Moreland, the big winner on the O-line, 85 overall. He's from Washington, D.C. He has 96 strength, and his run blocking ability is solid. You still need to work on it. It's not great or anything, but he still has some caps to grow on. The pass blocking, man, 89 pass block power there, looks really good. He still has some room to grow even. Like, this kid, man, I hope he has a big jump next year and he's gonna go in the first round or something. Jason Thompson, the new guard, 6'4", 297, out of Huntington, West Virginia. Former 3-star who has 87 strength, and he has still good skill caps. Like, this kid can still grow, and the run blocking is his one strength and 2 weaknesses there, but I don't know. He still can grow it a little bit. The pass blocking's almost maxed out, but it's all in the 80s, so I'd say that's good enough. Especially at guard, where I think run blocking is a little bit more important at guard if you're running a lot of inside zone like we did last year. And yeah, definitely excited about his offseason growth as well. And then I think he's a senior now, so he's going to declare this, or he's not going to declare, but I hope he's going to be having a good senior season. And then once he's gone, replacing him is going to be George Ivey, a 4-star recruit I had last year. He was labeled with a bust, so his caps are not great. He also doesn't have the great depth trait. And he has a big weakness there at pass block finesse, man. That is really bad. Run block finesse is also not great either. But I think this guy should be fine enough as a guard for the future. The caps are not great, but I think he can develop into like an 87 overall or something and be a decent guard in this conference. Now we have Andy Mayo at center. He played last year, and he's going to be very much fine this year as well. All the pass block ratings in the high 80s. That's great. He has good lead block. As a center, that's something that's important, especially on screens and stuff. The power is not quite there, but it's good enough. And the run blocking, it's good enough, I guess. He's going to have double teams. That's going to be fine. We have a very good right guard. We had him last year. We're going to have him again this year. And the pass blocking is just elite with this guy. Not worried about this pass protection at all. The run blocking is more the issue for him, and he also is capped out on power, on strength. So 85 strength is not on the high end, definitely. But I think this guy's going to be fine again this year. He's a junior. He didn't develop at all this offseason, sadly, because if he had been developing like by 2 overall, I think he would have gone to the NFL, but he does not. Shakir Parkey is our starter at right tackle. He started last year. He was a liability, but he had a big offseason. And his run blocking now looks a lot better, but his pass protection is the most important thing as a tackle. And that got a lot better, I have to say. It's not great still, and it's probably also not going to be great ever, but I'm pretty happy about his dev. And then we also recruited a 4-star tackle to be playing after he or Jason Moreland declares. 6'6", 285. John Tabor is a little bit light as a tackle, but he's already at his starting point. Gonna be a great pass protector. All his pass protection ratings are in the 80s. And this guy has almost no skill caps. This guy has so much room to grow. I think if this guy has good offseason devs, he could be in the 99 conversation, maybe. Because these skill caps are crazy good. He's going to be redshirted this year. His run blocking is horrible. And we have 2 good starters at the tackle spot. So that's going to be fine. But in a couple of years, watch out for Tabor. Dalton Graves, the big change from running back to edge rusher, and he develops instantly into an 84 overall. He got +7 on his finesse moves. I think he got even more on his power moves. He has 89 strength as a 5'9", 232 running back, former running back. He has now 97 awareness and 90 acceleration, 89 speed. Unreal story. Dalton Graves, sadly, not going to start this year because we still have Cordell Newcomb, but we will see Dalton Graves from time to time. Cordell Newcomb, not a great offseason boost for him. Power move still only 80. I was hoping for a jump a lot bigger than that, but hopefully he has it next year. 89 strength is really good. The block shedding, 72, while not great, is actually the second best out of all the edge rushers we have. So he's going to be starting in 4-3 base, and he's going to be starting at nickel as a pass rusher as well. He's going to be seeing hopefully 100% of snaps because he's just the best edge rusher we have. Rashad Ivory is a 4-star edge rusher I recruited last year. He's going to be redshirted this season, obviously. 84 finesse moves right off the bat is really good, but the skill caps, it's a little bit restrictive, especially here on the power moves. That's just not good news. I hope he can get it to like the 70s or something, but for now he's an absolutely one-dimensional player because his run stopping, 65 block shedding, that's just abysmal. So we're not going to see him for a while. I think that's probably going to be sitting the bench for 2 years before we see him to get those weaknesses figured out. And then at the other end spot, we have Arnold Dozier. He didn't really have a big offseason jump, but he had a solid season last year. We're definitely going to see him play again this year, but not as much as last year, I think. 82 power moves. That's a good start. He is pretty strong. 86 strength for like a 240 edge rusher. That's pretty good. The run stopping at 63 is abysmal, though. So he's not going to be starting in base at all. I hope he makes his time worth as a nickel edge rusher, but we'll see. Finesse moves, 79, pretty solid as well. But overall, we do have a better starter in 4-3 base, and this is Mitchell Zeman. He was redshirted last year, so he's now a redshirt freshman, former 4-star, 6'3", 284, and he is a crazy good run stopper, 91 block shedding. And this is why he starts in 4-3 base. But I also tell you, this is also a dude that's not gonna start in nickel personnel. This dude, and that's why I'm jumping back to this page, 284 pounds. I don't think he has the athleticism to play on the edge in nickel where he has to rush the passer, and also he doesn't have any pass rush. 65 power moves and 73 finesse moves. That is just not gonna cut it, man. So he's a 4-star, but I'm not gonna put a pass rusher out there that can't pass rush. He's a run stopper, and until he develops a little bit his pass rushing, he's gonna be a run stopper. At defensive tackle, Dylan McCaffrey. He was the big winner on the offseason devs, but sadly, this kid actually isn't very good at anything. He is a high overall, he has decent strength, he has decent athleticism, he has 82 power moves, 87 play rec, 73 finesse moves, and 78 block shedding. He's not good enough to be our starter in 4-3 base, and he's not good enough to be an edge rusher in nickel. So he's not going to see the field a whole lot this year. I'm sorry, even though he's our highest overall player. the guy who is seeing the field a lot in pass rush situations is going to be David Gavazza. He's the #1 player in nickel. Finesse moves and power moves are just great. Very strong for a player of his size. The block shedding 68 is bad, I know, but he's just going to be the starter in nickel. In base, we have different players. Steven Niziolek, 6'3", 313, a very big dude. He has been developing slowly every year, but he has made his way up here. 82 power moves is decent, I'd say. He has good finesse moves at 85. That's pretty good. He has 88 strength. And the run stopping is just not there. So he's also going to be starting in nickel. So he's the #2 defensive tackle in nickel behind David Gavazza. But our starter in base personnel is going to be Oscar Toviesi, our biggest winner. I actually was thinking about cutting this guy because he's, yeah, I don't know, just the 5th best defensive tackle just from overall. This guy is actually a great run stopper. 83 block shedding is our best block shedding we have at the defensive tackle position. He doesn't quite have the strength, but he can get a little bit better. And even he's a good run stopper, but he also has a little bit of pass rush. So in base personnel, he's the perfect player, honestly. And so that's why he's going to start in base. We're going to see Oscar Toviesi on the field this year. And then we have a redshirt here, Marvin Carden. Yeah, pro potential D. I don't know why I could recruit him last year. That didn't make any sense to me, but I hope we can keep him around. I'm not going to be heartbroken if he goes. There's a third player that I'm going to be a lot more heartbroken about if he goes, but it would be awesome to keep him because his skill caps are actually pretty crazy good, except the one for finesse moves. That's just not great, but I think this guy's going to be great. I just don't know if it's going to be with us, but he's going to be redshirted regardless. And yeah, let's switch it over to linebacker. Alani Siao, a senior linebacker that's going to be redshirted this year. I know, it sounds crazy, but hear me out. He has very good coverage ability, but he didn't have a great offseason jump in overall. And I am hoping that next year he can make that jump and actually declare for the NFL. Because this year he's not going to make it. And we have very good linebackers on this team that now overtook him. And the one guy that overtook him first is Dalton Boger, man. This kid looks now unreal. His coverage ability is decent, I'd say. It's not crazy good or anything. But he is just a decent player at pass coverage. He's a decent player at the IQ stuff. And he's a pretty solid run stopper. But the craziest thing about him is he has now 94 speed and 94 acceleration, man. This kid looks great. And he's going to be the #1 linebacker. And when I moved Mandarino to safety, I was going to imagine, yeah, he's going to be playing a sub linebacker in nickel and safety in base. But no, Willie Pounds also made a big jump. And he's now an 85 overall with pretty bad IQ stuff, honestly. Yeah, I know. He is going to be not the greatest player ever this season. But hear me out, man. His run stopping is unreal. He's going to be a great run stopper this season. And he has some good hit power. 84 hit power, 96 tackling, 92 pursuit, 88 block shed. 88 block shed is ridiculously good at linebacker. It would be ridiculously good at defensive tackle. His zone coverage at 76 is good enough to get by. So I think Willie Pounds and Dalton Boger are going to be the starters in sub linebacker. And then we have a third linebacker in Matthew Robbins that I think is also better now than Alani Siao. And so I'd say that we don't need Mandarino playing linebacker. He can just play linebacker at safety. And so we have on base personnel, we're going to have 4 linebackers on the field and 2 safeties, even though it's just 5 players. And then in nickel, same thing again. We have 3 linebackers and 2 safeties, even though it's just 4 players. Matthew Robbins, didn't talk much about him. He's a good pass coverage linebacker. His run stopping isn't great. But he's the third linebacker on this team, and that's why I redshirted Alani Siao, because I want him to have a chance to get a good offseason boost next year and maybe declare. Ben Baskerville, he is now the #1 corner on this team. 81 man coverage, 85 press, 99 change of direction. That's as good as you'll ever need. 79 catching isn't great, but he did have 3 picks last year, so I'm not gonna bet against him. And then he has 82 zone coverage, which is more than good enough. Good play rec and enough speed. Not crazy or anything, but he's the #1 corner on this team this year. And the #2 is going to be Trayvon Melvin. And for a short second, I thought about maybe redshirting him. He's going to play this year, but he's going to get the Alani Siao treatment if he doesn't have a big offseason boost next year. 82 man coverage, 77 press, 98 change of direction. He's a great man coverage corner. And that's also something I want to talk about. We're going to play a lot more man coverage this year because we have a couple of really good man cover corners here. And they have enough speed to get by, I'd say. Depends on the team. We're not going to play man coverage against somebody like Kenyon Ream with 99 speed, but that 94 speed should be enough to cover anybody. And he has also a blanket coverage ability, I think. And then Jimmy Busby, 6'1", 176. He's going to be the 4th corner. He's the dime corner. He's going to be playing in the slot on dime. 82 man coverage, 77 press. Also a man cover corner with decent zone ability. He has 81 catching. The only knock on him, and that's why he's only the #4 corner and not the #3, is his athleticism. He is below 94 speed, and I think at slot corner you can get by with that. But if we're going to be playing man coverage, I don't really want him out there. And then Manny Fine. He made a big overall jump in this offseason. He's 6 foot 183, and he is going to replace Marquez Emery as the slot corner because Emery had a horrible offseason and he's going to be not playing this year. Man coverage is definitely there for Manny Fine. The zone at 78, that's actually lower than you want. It's decent, I guess, but if we're going to be running man coverage, I'm going to trust him because this kid has 95 speed. He has a big jump this offseason. And now let's talk about Marquez Emery, the biggest disappointment this offseason. He didn't even get a single overall jump. 5'11", 196. He's a man cover corner as well, but he's not good enough to be a starter anymore. We have 4 starting corners, and he is going to be redshirted. I know he has 87 catching, but the zone coverage is just so god-awful on him. 68 zone, that's just so bad. You need to do a lot better, mister. So, he's going to be redshirted this year. He has 97 speed, I know. But just athleticism and the ability to catch the ball doesn't make you a great corner. And then we had a 4-star recruit from last season that is going to be redshirted this year as a true freshman. He's not going to play. He's pretty much almost the same player that Marquez Emery is. The skill caps are pretty good for Rashad Ring. The only thing about him is he is not quite the same athlete, and he has even less zone coverage. So definitely not a starter this year, but maybe if he is a good jump next year, he'll make it. 92 speed should be enough for now, and he's uncapped there, so he can get even better there. Let's go to safety, where Isaac York has had his 3rd disappointing offseason in a row. But year after year, he is the starter, and he's also going to be starter this year. I thought about giving him the Alani Siao treatment, but he has a deal-breaker playing time. So I fear if I'm going to not play him, if I'm going to redshirt him this year, I think he might leave after the season and go somewhere else. So I'm not going to do that because if he goes somewhere else, he's not going to get an off-season jump at all. And so I'm just going to play him this year and hope he develops into an NFL player. He has 99 catching and 99 hit power, and I don't think he forced a single fumble last year. He did have 4 picks. You got to give him that, but man, so far York has been a disappointment. I'm hoping for a big senior season. Nate Square is a safety that we recruited a couple years ago and redshirted him last year as a true freshman. He has not had a big off-season jump. Just like Isaac York, his first off-season jump was from 76 to 79. I think that's decent, but he's not going to be good enough to be a starter this year. Just wanted to show his ratings. He is pretty much still uncapped, and I'm excited to see what he can do in the future, but this year is not going to be his year. He's going to be a backup in case of injury. Simon Shore is the third player that I recruited last year with the pro potential deal breaker. The other two are the running back Joey Meadows and the defensive tackle Marvin Carden. But out of these three players, the most I would be disappointed about if he left after the season is Simon Shore, and that's because he's from Washington, D.C. His caps are not great, but he definitely has a chance to make it to the NFL with these skill caps. And this kid is very athletic. And I'm looking forward to having him as a safety. But if he leaves after the season, I'm going to be heartbroken. I don't really care about the other two, but Simon Shore, he has to stay, man. 4-star players from Washington, D.C., we have to keep him around for the pipeline thing. Joe Mandarino, he had a big offseason, man. He moved to safety and he got a good jump, and now he's the best player on the team with great run support. We're going to have a linebacker and a safety at all times on the field with him. And man, he looks unreal. 86 zone coverage, very good. And yeah, I know he's 230. He weighs 230 pounds, but man, 89 speed and 92 XL should be more than enough to run at safety. And this is going to be definitely a massive upgrade from Lane Van Ness, who just graduated. One more player that's not going to play, but I wanted to show him, is George Proctor, because he had the big offseason boost. He looks very decent so far. He's not going to play this year. He's a backup, definitely. No doubt about it. But also his coverage is not ready. But it's nice to see that he had a very good offseason jump, and he has now a chance to compete at safety if Joe Mandarino decides to declare this year or something, you know. And then we have Donald Lanovoy still as our kicker. Nothing's going to change about that. We've had him for a couple years now, and he's still going to be our kicker this year and next year. 83 kick power and 84 kick accuracy. Nothing crazy, but I'm fine with him. I think our next this year I'm going to be recruiting kicker because he's a redshirt junior. We're going to recruit a new kicker this year. This time I'm hoping for 90s kick power, hopefully. And then Dylan Spofford, same thing. He's a redshirt junior. He's decent this year, but I'm going to recruit a new punter this year. And I hope that he can be replaced with a 90-plus kick power player. But for now, I think Spofford and Lanovoy are going to be fine. And that is the entire team. Crazy offseason. I hope that the season is going to be as fun as the offseason. And we're going to start it off in week 0 against Navy, which is going to be a nationally televised game, which is going to be good for our brand exposure, I guess. But Navy, the rivalry, that's going to be first. And then we're going to have a game at home against Virginia. That's the second rivalry of the season. Not a rivalry from the game, but a rivalry that I declared at the beginning of this dynasty. And then we're going to get right into it with the Big Ten schedule. We're going to play Purdue first. We beat them badly last year, so I hope we can repeat that. We're going to play Old Dominion, which is not a conference opponent in week 4, but I want to play all the Virginia teams. And I think Old Dominion and Liberty are the last ones left. And then we're going to get really into it with the Big Ten stuff. Minnesota, Illinois are going to be 2 away games. And then we're going to have a home game against Penn State. And then another away game against Ohio State. And then Oregon. This stretch is going to be brutal. Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon. And then we're going to have Maryland and Iowa with 2 more home games there. And the last game of the season is going to be Washington. So we're going to play 4 of the 5 tough teams in the conference, I'd say. The 5 tough teams are obviously Oregon, Washington, Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan. And we're going to play 4 of them. But we are ranked number 17 in the preseason. I don't know if we can do that, but I hope we will. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. And next episode is going to be week 0 against Navy, and then Virginia, and then Purdue. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe for more DC State Dynasty. See you next episode. Until then, have a great day.